So like I said, today we're going to look at analyzing what we did yesterday. So we're gonna still be kind of working with that income statement, but they do it in a little different way. So if you look on page 519, this little chart that they have in the green chart, this is kind of what you're talking about, but essentially it's the same thing that we looked at yesterday in that actual income statement, right? So now we're going to try to analyze or compare everything. And when you do this, when they ask you to do this, the percentage analysis of an income statement, it's always towards the net sales. Meaning you're going to compare everything, or you can compare any subcategory to your net sales. And then you're going to figure it out as a percent. So basically it's going to say what percent of whatever category you want to talk about is, and then you would get an actual percentage. So like if you look at this right here, going across, their cost of goods sold for net sales was 62.5% of what they did in their business. Okay, so notice then you would continuously do this over and over again, and then you would compare your percentages. So like for this company right here, their cost of goods sold was 62.5% this year. Last year was 65%. And then you could go through with the rest of it. So even though that the cost of goods sold was higher, their gross profit obviously is going to be a little less then, right? The 1 year that they made more because of their cost of goods sold. So if your goods sold is higher, then obviously your gross profit's going to be a little lower. And then you would show that, and you could then take that information to like your board, or if you're just using it for yourself, maybe you have to see, okay, maybe I have to cut down on my cost of goods. So that might be switching the kind of dough you use if you're running a pizza business, right? So instead of using the...
We switched up our whipped cream.
Okay. Cheaper whipped cream, right? And we tried to cut our costs by totally taking away the nuts unless somebody asks for them specifically, right? So those are little things. So this would be a statement that your supervisors would have looked at. And probably not even them. It's probably even higher than them. But yeah, but this is kind of what they're talking about. So you're going to take that percentage. So you're going to divide. Remember, if we're looking for a percentage, we're always going to divide something, right?
Lower by the higher.
The lower by the higher, essentially, yes. So divide the number that you're talking about by your net sales, and it would show the percent of your net sales. So basically, there's two of these that most companies try to do, and they're the gross profit margin and the net profit margin. So these are the two that you're probably going to do. These all help to compare your company year in and year out, like we said, and see if you need to do something different. So again, the whipped cream came up, the nuts came up, and now hopefully you're back on track at least a little bit. But obviously doing that even in the middle of the year, you already said you're way ahead, right? And obviously, then like last year, was it last year that we had the total shutdown for a while, or 2 years ago? 2 years ago around here, right? Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
Holy crepes.
Right? So 2 years ago, when basically everything was shut down, even the Midwest, because we were way better than the two coasts, right? Yeah. We ended up opening it up and surviving a little better than the two coasts. But you probably don't take that year and compare it to everything else, do you? Because it's just going to put everything out of whack. So you're probably just going to throw that totally out, all right? So you're going to try to do these two things, the gross profit margin and the net profit margin, as a percentage, all right? And we'll go through some of that. So then the ratio analysis of the income statement. This is comparing items on the statement. So you can do this however you want again. But the big one that they do this on is the merchandise turnover rate. What's the turnover rate mean? So think about what you just said.
Profit they make on this year.
Number Number of times you replace or turn over your stock in a period.
So the merchandise rate, in yours might not be a big deal, in your business it might be a little bigger deal. So your merchandise, meaning the shoes that you have, if you had to restock those shoes, and I'm not making fun of you.
Yeah, forget about it.
But if you went and had a big sale and you went through a lot of those shoes and you had to re-up that merchandise, then that's the turnover rate. So how fast can we get through that shipment of stuff? And so if it's a hot item, right? Everybody goes out and buys that one pair of shoes. What?
Are they salt pants right now?
Baseball pants. Perfect. Yeah. So your turnover rate right now is ginormous, right?
Cleats.
And cleats.
Need some.
Like nobody can find cleats, like Dylan said. So that's your turnover rate. Exactly right. So to find that, there's this, you have to know the period of time that you're looking at or comparing. So with Yah's situation right now, it says that they usually only do this month, quarter, and year, but they could possibly even do this weekly, right? To see what their turnover rate is right now. Because it's so high right now, right? And again, you gotta kind of always expect that, right? When baseball season's coming up, football season, probably the same thing. You just have a different categories of things, but a lot of those people are going to wait till the last minute and then expect you to have it, right? And then they get really mad when they don't. Okay, so your company, the people that have been around long enough, or even, you guys that now hearing this, you'll be prepared more for that next time to start kind of compiling baseball pants in what month? Well, right now, you got to also think about, are we going to supply the little leaguers, which is a little earlier than the high school kids, right? So then, if we're going to supply little league pants, we probably have to have them ready to go because they're already started, right? So we probably have to have those a month or two before they start. And then maybe 1 month behind that is the high school kids, and so on and so forth. But you would start compiling all that stuff, and so that your turnover, even though that you're going through it all, you have that safety stock because you've stacked it up. Okay. So obviously, the turnover rate will differ between companies. That should be an easy thing to remember, right? I mean, even if you think about ice cream companies or ice cream parlors, okay? Right? But we're talking about the ice cream parlor here is probably still going to always be more business than some random little mom and pop place in a little small town, right? Because there's actually people that come from a long ways away just to go to the parlor.
Nothing
Okay.
special.
Right? So their turnover rate's obviously going to be a lot different, right? You're going to go through a lot more caramel sauce than somebody else. Okay?
It's overrated.
Dude, because you live in the margin, you go all the time. Where would people travel?
I never
Right.
go there.
Well, yeah, but it's still good. And there's
So then-
nowhere else like it.
So then you also have to think about, okay, so is the turnover rate for certain items a big necessity? Meaning, okay, so if Yao all of a sudden has a bunch of baseball pants, is his turnover rate of those baseball pants as crucial as somebody at a supermarket and they're dealing with milk? Probably not, right? Yeah, I can get away with taking those pants and storing them a whole year, maybe if he has to, till next season.
Can't store milk for a year.
Okay, but you can't do that with milk.
Unless
So-
it's over the counter.
When it says if you sell food, you got to make sure that your turnover rate is way higher, right? Bread, any of your baked goods, they're going to put that date on there and have it so it's out of there before, right? Whereas you're not going to put a date on a set of cleats just because you didn't sell them. Now the next year when you came and you bring that out, you might have a sale to get rid of those because how people are with the new thing. But at the same time, it's still going to be good if you had a pair of cleats or a pair of pants that's 1 year old. Okay. So here's my So again, notice that you can do this to the whole inventory or just individual items. So you can figure out just his baseball pants right now, or you can figure out everything in the store as his whole inventory. So again, remember, we're talking about the merchandise turnover rate, which is this MTR. And our formula is going to be the cost of goods sold for the period divided by the average merchandise inventory for the period. So the cost of goods sold divided by the average merchandise. When we talk about the average merchandise inventory in this little formula right here, you have to actually go in and you have to take your two inventories, the beginning of the month inventory and the end of the month inventory, and take the average of those two numbers first. So you're going to add those two numbers, divide by 2, and that's going to be your denominator. But you'll see that when we go through the examples. Okay? So let's look at a couple of these things. Again, we're analyzing how our business is doing. So in letter A, a vacuum cleaner dealership's net sales were $238,000 last year. Its operating expenses for the same period was $17,000. What were the operating expenses as a percent of net sales? So this one's pretty straightforward. When they give you the two numbers and they ask you what are the operating expenses or what are whatever, you're always going to have the net sales as the denominator. So in this case, you would take your 17,700 divided by your 238,000 and you get a percentage. What's my percent?
6.2, 6.3%.
No.
You said the cost of goods sold period.
You should have just taken 17,700 divided by 238, 180.
Yeah, give .0625.
No, it'd be 7.4.
7.4.
What are you doing?
That's right there.
You subtracted these.
I did this.
No.
You're not,
Yeah.
you're doing straight division there, my guy. Letter A.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Letter A.
Oh, I was on C.
You idiot.
Why is your number 6?
I
know,
I
I
know. Gosh, man. Do I have to hold your?
Yes, please.
Read your numbers off again.
I'm just doing it.
Guarantee he's gonna get .0743
Okay, now I got it.
3544.
He must have just had one number off or something. Okay.
You're on the wrong problem.
Are we good? All right. Now, letter B. This one's a little different, so pay attention to this one. Cliver Telecommunications had net sales of $1.5 million last year and cost of goods sold at $1.03 million. Last year, the amounts were, so basically they're saying we're comparing 1 year to the next, or the 1 year to the previous year. So the year that we just got done were the first two numbers. Last year, the amounts were $1.4 million and $960,000. What is the company's gross profit margin to the nearest percent, and then how much did it rise or fall? So,
There you go.
what do I have to do here? Do I go through and take the two numbers that they give me straight up?
Straight up, you have to take.
This is the question right now. Do I use the two numbers that they give me in the first sentence? The 1.5 million of net sales and the 1 million of cost of goods sold. Do I use those in the fraction?
They're in the same year.
Yes, they're in the same year, exactly. But what is it asking? It says, what is the company's gross profit margin?
Would
The
you
first
add?
year-
You'd add both. No.
No.
Or would you do?
How do you find between those two numbers? How do you find the gross profit between the 1.5 million and the 1.03 million?
You subtract.
You got to subtract them first. So you're going to take the 1.5 million minus the 1.03 million, get an answer,
Take that.
and then divide that by what?
1.5 million?
The 1.5 million. What'd you get there, big boy?
You have to divide that.
Yes. So you got to subtract the two numbers first, and then take that. You want me to write it down here?
Yeah.
How much?
0.35.
0.35. So you're going to take 1.5. Tell me the rest of the numbers.
1.589300
Minus.
minus 1,032,800
those two numbers first.
You get 556,450.
And then you're gonna take this number right here, divided by your amount that your net sales. And that should give you
35%.
0.35. Okay, so I'm gonna do the exact same thing for the next part, and then I'm gonna compare the two. Well, right off the bat, could you tell if it rose or if you
Kind of
fell?
went down a little bit.
It did?
I did.
Remember which order they give it to you. They give you
Oh,
today, or this year's numbers
It went
first.
up.
It did go up,
Right
right?
at it backwards.
Yeah, it had it backwards. So, the second one, what was your percentage?
0.34
Okay.
after rounding.
Or 33.9. So then, the last answer would have been to take those two and subtract them. So you take 35%, or 35 minus 33.9, and we would say what?
1.1.
1.1, and so this is what?
Percent of
So our gross profit margin rose 1.5 or 1.1% from one year to the next.
but it was smaller, right?
No, but remember, this was the year before. This is the current year. That's what Johnson did too. So you gotta read which one's which, right? Everybody see what I'm saying? Okay, turn the page.
They didn't have my change this morning, that's why
All right, so in letter C, it says Rock Creek Stores had a beginning inventory on January 1st of 168,000. The ending inventory on December of 155. So in this particular case, letter C, they're doing it January to December, so they're doing it for a whole year. So if this is my beginning and my ending inventory still, so you could do the beginning and ending inventory of the whole year, or you could do the beginning and ending of a particular month or a particular period. Okay, so you just got to know what you're doing. In either case, the date doesn't really matter. You just have to have a beginning and an end. Okay, so in this case, it's actually the beginning of the year and the end of the year. You're going to take those two numbers. So take 168,000 number and add it to 155 and then divide by 2. So you're taking the average of the beginning inventory and the ending inventory. So what do you get?
Be 161,920.
Yes. Everybody get that?
Yep.
Then you take that answer and go and take that to your problem in the book. So see the 945,000 number? You're going to take 945,000 divided by the answer that you just got in your calculator. So this one, you do not have to do the smaller number on top. You want the bigger number on top.
5.83.
5.83. So when it says, what was its merchandise inventory turnover rate? It's 5.8 times, basically. So they would have went through their stuff 5.8 times during the year. That's what that's saying. That makes sense? So again, your baseball pants, you would probably do it now, maybe weekly, and see what your turnover rate was. Okay? And then notice in the next one, it just says a fabric manufacturer had some items on July 1st and then some items on September 30th. So what's my time frame here? What's July 1st to September 30th?
Is that 3?
July,
August. September.
So if it's 3 months, what's my period of time? What do you call 3 months
A quarter.
fiscally? That would be a quarter. My period is
3 divided by
3.
12.
Not the physical, it's the fiscal. So this would have been by. So even though that we're now doing it as a quarter instead of a whole year, you still take the beginning and the end, average them, and then take your inventory divided by that. Okay? And then that'll tell you how many times your turnover rate was. Okay?
That's something I can get behind.
Questions?
Divided by
Divide by two.
And that one, you take the bigger number divided by the smaller number, yes. So that's where it's kind of deceiving because you're doing a fraction in both cases. But in the first one, you want percent, so you always know that you gotta do the smaller divided by the bigger.
Well, we didn't do it, that's like paper.